Hey everyone, I hope you guys are having a great day. With that said, I have some creepy traveling stories for you guys to listen to. So I hope you enjoy. And if you do, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. I love hearing back from you guys, and as always, enjoy. So this took place in the winter of 2019. For reference, I'm a 19-year-old male who's 5'1" and 170 pounds. My friend, who I'll call Frank for privacy reasons, and I decided to go up to Ohio to visit some mutual friends and some family members who currently live in Florida. So it'd be a 15-hour drive. So we get about midway through the drive and we needed to stop at a rest stop to stretch our legs and go get some snacks. This was around 10:30 at night. Frank decided to use the bathroom while I scrolled through Instagram on my phone. I looked up and I noticed this was by far the emptiest rest stop I've ever seen. Besides one semi-truck and a van. Fast forward 10 minutes and Frank is still in the bathroom. So I shoot him a text saying, "Man, did you fall in? Hurry up." Well, right after I sent that text, a random woman just walks up to me and asks if I've seen someone named Abel. Being startled that she literally appeared out of nowhere, then replied back, "No ma'am, I'm just waiting for my friend." What she said next made my blood run cold, nearly making me drop my phone. Well, she told me that Abel was her son, who ran away from home, and he had a nasty habit of attacking people at the rest stop, believing it was his kingdom or something like that. Anyway, the part that scared me the most was that right after she said this, I heard a scream coming from the bathroom. I sprinted the fastest I've ever in my life towards the screaming Frank's name, and when I opened the door, I saw the tallest yet most disgusting man I've met pointing a knife at Frank. I yelled at the man, "If he doesn't let Frank go, I'm going to go be calling the police." He then turned to me and yelled, "Don't you know who I am? I own the rest stop, and you're ruining it. Going to pay." The tall man charged towards me with the knife, and then swatted at me, but just barely missing, giving me a chance to tackle him, and then Frank helped get the knife away. The mom actually called the police for us, and they took forever, while Frank and I held him down. Once the police arrived, however, they looked annoyed, as it turns out Abel had been arrested several times, threatening and yelling at people who used the rest stop. He even did some time in a psychiatric ward. I don't know how he got out, but even to this day, if that lady had never came up to me, I really don't even know what would have happened to Frank. Thank God it didn't get any worse than it already was. For the sake of the story, I'm going to call myself Brad. The story happened on Christmas 2022. For some info, I'm 25 years old. I'm male, and I live in Delaware County, Pennsylvania. But I have a very huge extended family, and many of my family members live in Miami, Florida. So just like I do every Christmas, I decided to take a trip to Miami, Florida, to visit my family that lives there. I stayed at my three cousins' house, who I'm going to refer to as Jack, Jason, and Adrian. They live in a big house in Boca Raton. We did the usual stuff. We spent time with our aunts and uncles, and generally had a good time as expected. We also had lots of food and fun. But me and my two cousins are extremely close to each other, and we spend the majority of our time alone together, but we're always very adventurous. We have one thing in common. We love anything that has to do with horror. We love to watch real-life non-paranormal horror videos and listen to horror stories on YouTube. And we also really love to go out for drives in the middle of the night and do random night road trips. But one night on December 27th, we took things a bit too far. On that night, me and my cousin decided to go at 2:30 in the morning, but Adrian had an idea and said, "Hey bro, instead of taking the car, we should go out on foot." I responded, "Dude, really? Are you crazy?" Unfortunately, Jack and Jason agreed with Adrian and said, "Come on man, let's just go out on foot." I gave into the peer pressure and I went along with them. We went for a long walk. We talked for maybe about 50 minutes for an hour, possibly even more. It was very quiet and quite creepy, but my other cousins who thought they were tough didn't seem scared at all. so I tried to suck it up as much as possible. After an hour of walking, we got bored of walking on a long stretch of empty road, so we decided to walk into a poorly lit neighborhood. I thought that was a stupid idea, and I told my cousins, I don't think it's a good idea to walk into the shady area. Adrian began being the tough guy, then said, come on bro, man up. Everything will be fine. There's nobody out here. Quit crying, little cousin. It's fine. We walked into the poorly lit neighborhood, and we saw a bench and decided to sit there. We kind of just sat there and just talked about life in general, as well as our childhoods and whatnot, for about 30 minutes of sitting there. Right in the distance, we heard gunshots. They sounded like automatic weapons, and we saw an SUV just in the distance. Adrian then responded with, dude, what's that, bros? We should probably get the hell out of here. I said, but it was too late. The SUV was a black model Dodge Durango 392, which sped down the road right next to us. We tried to run, but one man got out of the passenger seat and then pointed a pistol at us, yelling, if any of you try to run, I'm going to blow your brains out. Give me your wallets now. We were all frozen with fear, but I quickly took out my wallet and gave the maniac the only $50 that I had. The maniac also took many out of my other cousins, but the maniac then yelled, get in the truck now, all of you. My cousins and I just looked at each other. We didn't say anything, but at the moment we knew we were going to die. But by pure luck, the driver then said, bro, we're not going to kidnap anybody tonight. Just get in the truck and let's get out of here. They just sped away into darkness, and just like that, it was all over. We were still very shaken by this horror. We then decided to run out of the neighborhood. We ran for a good while until we were pretty far away from the shady area. Then we walked back home. We didn't even bother calling the police, because the Durango didn't even have a license plate, so there really wasn't much they could have even done. We also didn't tell anyone in our family about this, because they would have felt bad for us, and they probably would have gave us heck for being so stupid enough to go out on foot at 2 a.m. Now we do still go at night, but we make sure to always go out by car. My cousins realized that they're not as tough as they thought, and that we're much more vulnerable while we're on foot. This is my advice to anybody listening to the story. Even though you might be a big, tough, muscular guy, you will never win against a maniac with a dozen others holding guns. Please be careful out there. I'm an 18-year-old male. This happened to me in the middle of July, while I was on a day trip with my family to a small coastal town called Monto, located at the tip of the Long Island. I was sitting in a cafe alone while my mom and dad and sister were exploring the different boutiques around town, which I wanted no part of. I was scrolling through my phone at one of the tables in the center of the cafe when a man walked into the store that I could see through my peripheral vision. Pale freckles, red tank top, sunglasses, and a baseball cap. He was mid to late 30s. Normally, I wouldn't have paid my mind to the man, but I could feel his eyes staring at me. When I glanced up, we locked eyes. I tried to brush it off as him thinking I was attractive, and I just went back to scrolling through Instagram. But that feeling of being watched still lingered, and it set me on edge. The man had a brief encounter with the person behind the counter, but none of it I could make out from where I was sitting. Then he sat down where he would continue to stare me down for a long, uncomfortable periods of time. I was officially creeped out, and in an effort to get myself out of this creepy man's view, I crossed the cafe towards one of the bathrooms, and out of the corner of my eye, I could see his head slowly turn to follow me. I locked myself in, giving myself 5 minutes to cool down, before I got out, assuming that he did what a normal person would have done, and lost interest, and left. But as I opened the door to leave that bathroom, I saw him standing right there in front of the door, staring at me, literally waiting for me. I felt this horrible feeling in the pit of my stomach as I quickly turned away and sat at my table texting my parents and asking, where are you guys? Well, the man then entered the bathroom. I just left. Meanwhile, the bathroom right next door was totally empty, the door wide open for him to go if he needed to. This is when I knew he was targeting me. It felt like I was his prey. When the man left the bathroom, he stared me down where I sat before exiting, But it didn't stop there. The walls of the cafe were large, glass panes, allowing me to see the strange man outside, prowling the exits, watching me through the glass, and waiting for me to walk out. I don't know what he wanted, but I stayed put, right inside the cafe, and after about 10 minutes, he finally walked off. Within the next few minutes, I found myself with my dad outside the cafe. I wanted to tell him about what I had just experienced, but he was already pissed off about an argument with my mom, and I didn't want to make anything worse. While he complained to me about his situation, I find myself frozen in fear, a dry lump in my throat. I was staring over his shoulder, and across the street, I saw that same man staring at me from the opposite sidewalk, totally unmoving. Finally, we start walking, and we then regroup with my mom and sister, making our way through the town towards our car. It had been parked 2 or 3 blocks down, and while my mom and dad continued to go at it the entire time, he's following me right behind us. I kept glancing over my shoulder, just praying he was gone, but every time, he was still there, his eyes trained on me, and me only. Finally, we made it to a corner, and on the other side of the crosswalk is where we're parked. As we cross, a bus drives by and separates the man from behind us, from being able to follow us across. My family and I then get into a car, everybody but me oblivious as to what has been going on. And as we pull away from the curb and begin driving off, I stare out the window, then locking eyes with the man as he stands on the corner, completely still, and then we're gone. I don't know what he wanted, but if things had been just a little bit different, my life could have taken a very dark turn. This is pretty recent. It was actually today, and the more I think about it, the weirder it gets. So I'll just put it here because I need to tell the story, but I don't want my parents and friends to freak out. I, 21-year-old female, traveled to Istanbul on my own to enjoy a couple of days to myself after my finals. When I left the hotel to find something to eat around 5 p.m., one local greeted me, so I said hi back. He asked if I was on vacation, because I have typical East Asian look, so clearly not local, and we shared some small talk. Just when I decided to return on my way, he offered to show me around town and invited me to dinner because he wants me to have the real local experience. Because I read a lot about scammers in Istanbul, I was almost certain he's one of those. So I politely said no. This is when things start to change. He seems really upset by my decline, and said that he just thought I'd look nice and wanted to make my vacation more memorable and good. He sounded super sincere, and he didn't look like a weirdo, in his 40s and 50s and polite. So my feminine ass gave in, and I agreed to let him walk me around town. He actually told me quite some interesting things about Istanbul, and I actually enjoyed our talk. And because I'm a big-ass introvert, so it's really rare, he showed quite some interest in my study and trip, and he showed me pictures of his 2 teenager sons, and people on the street greeting them like an old friend along the way. Also, he kept telling me he thought I'm beautiful, and how honored he was to show me around. I know this sounds super weird already, but keep in mind that I have already really low self-esteem and image, and nobody ever calls me beautiful or pretty, or anything near that. When walking, he asked me whether I've tried Turkish hammam. I didn't hear him clearly, so I said no. Then he said that he had known a really good hammam place, ran by a woman, who's the best in town, and said that if he was interested, I must give it a try. Yes, I'm interested in Turkish hammam, but going with him feels so weird. But he said only locals know the place, and it's a once-in-a-lifetime experience. I also find it super difficult to refuse other people's offers, because of my cultural upbringing, so I said yeah. And then while we went walking, he told me that the place is a couple minutes car drive away, and showed me his car parked on the road. Yes, I know what you're thinking, but this is my first time traveling abroad on my own, and I'm eager to prove to my parents that I can do this. So I sat into the car and shotgun because he insisted. But before all this, I sneaked a photo of his car plate and his face and sent them to my parents, and casually told them that I think it's no problem, but they might keep an eye on my update just in case. In the car, he kept repeating I'm beautiful, and asked me if it's okay for him to call me Rose, because he thought I'm like a rose. He asked me whether I had boyfriends, and I told him I'm only interested in girls. Then he said he could totally understand different people had different preferences, and told me that I could see him as a woman, so that I can feel more at ease. He asked me for my right hand, and I left a kiss on the back. And after a while, he held on to my other hand, on my lap, and said that he was really glad he met me. He said that Hammam place only took cash, and drove me to an ATM to get them. Before this, he showed me the money on the Hammam's brochure. It's €185, 1.5 hours. I don't know the normal price for such thing, but I know in no way am I going to spend my parents' money on this. So at the ATM, I deliberately took out my 300 lira and pretended I don't understand the exchange rate. And things got more interesting. He told me that places often charge extra for tourists, so I should give the money to him. And then he tells that place that I'm his guest, so that I won't be charged extra. When I handed him the 300 lira, he asked me, is that a joke? When he told me it should be 2,500 plus lira, I acted surprised, and said that I didn't really want to go anymore. He got really upset and disappointed, and kept telling me that he already called his friend to prepare, and I was missing out big. He made me feel so bad that when he said I should pay for dinner for him to make up for the cancellation fine and gasoline money, I didn't even question. He then told me he's not angry at me, he's just upset that I missed a perfect opportunity, and he kissed my right hand again, and insisted on holding my left hand, because he wanted to ensure me that he's not mad and still loves me. And yes, he used the word love. He chose a super fancy seafood restaurant and ordered for me because the waiter didn't understand English. That dinner ended up being 4,000 lira, but at the time I just wanted to get it over with. After I made it clear that I would not spend the night with him at local bar, he offered to drive me back to my hotel to make sure I was safe. But I insisted on him dropping me off near the road, because to hell am I going to let him know my hotel address? Before I left, he asked me whether I could give him a kiss. I already refused him once before dinner, and this time I made myself lean over and slightly touch his cheek. He turned his hand at the very last second in my direction, and I touched his stubble near his mouth. I immediately left and closed the door and walked away, and I aggressively rubbed my mouth. Is he a scam to trick me into visiting commercial places? Or he's just an overpassionate hospital local citizen? Or he's a sexual harasser? I thought as an active feminist I'm already familiar with all kinds of sexual harassment, but at the end, I found myself lost and confused. I am not sure whether this counts as a creepy encounter, but here's my story, and please tell me how an outsider sees this. Hey everyone, I hope you all enjoyed those stories. Always, thank you for listening. I love hearing from you guys, and as always,